Now I wanted to give this a tazkiyah checklist, if you will. What does ihsan look like? What does excellence look like when it comes to showing up at the right time, at the right place? There are 4 things. Number 1, it's doing while others are not doing. Doing while others are not doing. Number 2, it's doing what isn't expected of you in your circumstances. Number 3, it's doing more of what everybody else is doing. Number 4, it's doing quicker and with more enthusiasm what everybody else is doing. So I'm going to break these down inshallah ta'ala, but I wanted to give you the list of 4 things from the very beginning. What does it mean to have your time to shine in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And where does Sha'ban fall into this in terms of an attitude? Now, what does this have to do with Sha'ban, the month of Sha'ban? And I said at the outset for a reason. Just like Ramadan, by the way, appeals to a particular heart, Sha'ban appeals to a particular mindset. Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates, as well as Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, that there was no month that we would see the Prophet ﷺ fasting outside of Ramadan as much as Sha'ban. It was as if he was connecting them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, they say that a perfect practice is the closest you'll get to a perfect performance, right? Like, to see him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, fasting all of Sha'ban to a point that you could count on one hand, perhaps, what the Prophet ﷺ might not have fasted in the month of Sha'ban, is inspiring. But here's the thing. There's not a single khutbah where the Prophet ﷺ is pushing the community to it the way that he was fasting it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Here's where the narration continues and it gets very interesting. They asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, ذَلِكَ شَهْرٌ يَغْفُلُ النَّاسُ عَنْهُ بَيْنَ رَجَبٍ وَرَمَضَانٍ. That's a month that people become heedless in regards to. They neglect it. Because it's between the sacred month of Rajab and the greatest month of Ramadan. So people toss it to the side. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, تُرْفَعُ فِيهِ الْأَعْمَالُ إِلَى رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ فَأُحِبُّ أَنْ يُرْفَعَ عَمَلِي وَأَنَا صَائِمٌ. And also the deeds are presented to Allah in this month. And I like that my deeds are presented to Allah when I'm in a state of fasting. But the first reason he gives, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is the interesting one. The particular one of this khutbah. It's a time of ghafla. It's actually a time of heedlessness. It's a time where most people are not taking their particular journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that seriously. It's a time that you rarely find people exerting themselves in these good deeds. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying, that's the best time to shine. That's the best time to stand out. When other people aren't paying attention, that's when you pay extra attention. Because you stand out amongst the crowd at that point. And Abu Bakr al-Razi, rahimahullah, commented, قال ما أقبح الغفلة عن طاعتي من لا يغفل عن برك وما أقبح الغفلة عن ذكري من لا يغفل عن ذكرك. He said, رضي الله عنه, ما أقبح الغفلة. How repulsive is heedlessness. عن طاعتي من لا يغفل عن برك. A person who becomes heedless in regards to the worship of the one who never stops showing you kindness. And he said, وَمَا أَقْبَحَ الْغَفْلَةِ. And how repulsive is heedlessness. عَنْ ذِكْرِ مَنْ لَا يَغْفُلُ عَنْ ذِكْرِكَ. How repulsive is heedlessness in regards to remembering the one who never forgets you. Ghafla can be sinful. Heedlessness can be sinful. And sometimes it can just be complacency. But what we should be doing in this month is competing for Allah's pleasure when most people are not even paying attention to it. And that's something you have to ask yourself, how can I push myself to do something that other people are waiting for Ramadan to do? How do I exert myself now as practice for Ramadan, but also in honoring a particular time that other people are not honoring? As Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah said, Ramadan is a time where everyone does ibadah. But your ibadah in Sha'ban is a time where you really show that you want the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you want the pleasure of your Lord. And this was a mindset of the companions. So for example, one of the narrations, some of the companions, كانوا يستحبون إحياء ما بين العشاءين بالصلاة. They used to love to worship between the two ishas, the two night prayers. What are the two night prayers? Maghrib and Isha in hadith literature. So they would stay in the masjid between Maghrib and Isha, this group of companions, because they said, most people go home and come back for Isha. Let's see if we can take advantage of this time. And the Prophet ﷺ coming out so proud of those young men that came to the masjid and they stayed between Maghrib and Isha, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until the next salah, because they said that's a time where people become heedless. That's my time to shine. Now, the Quran in particular, Ramadan is Shahrul Quran. Ramadan is the month of Quran. But do you know what the Tabi'een, what the righteous generation used to call Sha'ban? They used to call it Shahrul Qurra, the month of the reciters. So they called Shahrul Ramadan, Shahrul Quran, the month of Ramadan, the month of Quran, and they called the month of Sha'ban Shahrul Qurra, the month of the reciters, because only the reciters recite in Sha'ban. And if you could practically say to yourself, I expect to recite this much in Ramadan, I'm going to do half of that in Sha'ban, or even a fourth. But I'm going to start carving out this time every day, and I'm going to read this many pages. And in Ramadan, I expect to make this times 2, or times whatever. This is your opportunity to shine, and your opportunity to put yourself forward. And finally, as Al-Hafidh ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, said, that part of this is also the qualitative element, trying to hide your good deeds. Ihsan, excellence. In Ramadan, everyone is fasting, everyone's praying, there's a public virtue here. In Sha'ban, he says that the Sahaba and the Salaf, the righteous predecessors, what they would do is, they would try to hide their fasting in Sha'ban. And that's one of the wisdoms, perhaps, that the narrations about the Prophet ﷺ fasting all of Sha'ban only come from his family. They only come from Aisha, Usama ibn Zayd, and the people that were in his household, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said, إِذَا أَصْبَحْتُمْ صِيَامًا فَأَصْبِحُوا مُدَهَّنِينَ. He said, if you wake up and you're fasting in Sha'ban, go out looking fresh, have your cologne on, have your perfume on, whatever it is, don't let people in on it. Because that's the qualitative element as well, is that I'm trying to shine with some of these secret deeds that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know about. Because these are not times that the public expects certain good deeds of you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to shine when we do what others are doing, and when we do when no one else is doing. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to drive our hearts, our thoughts, our limbs to please Him in Sha'ban, and to please Him in Ramadan, and to attain His special reward in His special times and places, and to never be deprived of His always special mercy. Allahumma ameen. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.